Good morning. Okay, today we're going to do a little bit of tapping and percussion, a little bit of lion's breath, a little bit of movement. So if you're feeling kind of any held worry or fear or concern, you might feel it a bit more, but you'll give some space for it to move. So when I am feeling those emotions, and when I'm teaching people when they're feeling those emotions, my focus isn't to move them. My focus isn't to get rid of them. My focus is to recognize what they're there to teach and the message that comes in around them. So you might feel them a little bit more, just more closely. And, well, it's tricky for me to say this via video, but see if you can really just be with them. Okay, I know that sounds kind of trite, but see if you can be with them just as you would be with whatever sensations in your body, and then see what happens. Okay, so we're going to be doing some sitting. I'm going to place a block underneath my hips here, and we're going to start with some tapping and percussion. So your hands are going to be gently fisted here, and we're going to do this. We can call this Tarzan breath. And then it's like an inhale and then exhale either through your nose or through your mouth. And the thing is, as you're doing that, just notice when you are exhaling, do you tend to kind of go like on the inside of you? Is there a big collapse on the inside? Or are you kind of holding yourself up rigidly? Are you holding yourself up against something? Are you trying to prevent yourself from collapsing? And so none of those are bad or wrong. The key is to pay attention to what the state actually is. Yeah? And to feel it long enough that you can just get to know it a little bit. So as we know, thoughts create feelings and emotions, right? That's been something that's been long stated. What you think about, you bring about. Whether you think you're right or think you're wrong, you're right. Like lots of lines like that, right? So in a time like this, our thinking can be really interesting to explore, but sometimes when there's these emotions, I'm going to stop doing this now, but sometimes when there are these bigger emotions, it's harder to feel, right? So this practice is really about the feeling piece of this, okay? So one more, a little bit more, just feel it. Okay, so now, this one's kind of fun. I don't do this one very often on camera, but here we go. We're going to get into lion's breath. So with lion's breath, you're going to have your eyes move up towards your third eye, like right between the space between your eyebrows, and you're going to stick your tongue out, and you're going to do this. So go loud. Ready? One more. Now, I was the one who was on camera videotaping this, so I hope you screamed or yelled or lioned loud. It's actually kind of funny because my kids call my husband Daddy Lion and me Mummy Lion. And we crawl upstairs doing exactly that when we put them to bed at night. Okay, so we're going to come into hands and knees here. So the tailbone, or the pelvis is going to go into an anterior tilt, and then we're going to move into a back bend. Okay, so again, articulating joint here to start with. So really see if you can get that pelvis. Now, of course, the spine's going to come along for the ride because it's attached at L5S1. But what we want to avoid, see, I wore this shirt on purpose. You see this white line here, my stripes? If my intention is to move my pelvis, I don't want to move my back like that. So I want to really think about moving that pelvis around that leg bone, okay? And then start to coming on up, okay? And then moving that pelvis, and then bit by bit by bit, moving up through the spine. Okay, now from here, think about your exhale coming out. And then think about the inhale coming in. So we're letting this become a little bit of a wave. Yeah, you can see now how this is getting a little bit more, getting a bit better movement down at my pelvis now. And as I come back up, I can actually feel a little bit more. See, that was me moving more from my back, right? So if I think more here, good. And you'll notice as you practice, this isn't new knowledge around, like it's 5:30 in the morning here. I woke up about 20 minutes ago. So when we wake up, we don't tend to be as super supple as we tend to be later in the day. So the inhale is coming, there we go, that's nice. The inhale is coming in there. Okay, now, pelvis stays up, arms come forward, but keep that pelvis up. And do your best to not arch your back into this motion. So the ribs and the pelvis are staying connected. So the arms are coming up, ribs and pelvis are staying connected. The movement is through those hips and knees and shoulders. And just allow your hands to reach out. Nice. Okay, and then come back up. Now we're going to come into a side bend. So from here, you're just going to move yourself like this. So now the idea here is you're coming into this side bend and think about a ball and that you're going over a beach ball. And now my toes are pointing forward, but you can have them out there. The idea is the movement, the foot has come along for the ride, right? But because this might be difficult for some, then having that foot out is fine, but the foot, you're not just turning the foot out, it's moving as a result of what's going on at the hip, okay? And then over to the side. The awareness that we can grow in our body, I find, anyway, when I work with people and myself, is that the more awareness we can have in our body, it's like the greater space we have for the experience of the thought and the feelings that we have in ourselves. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm utilizing the physical practice, the physical movement practice, as a way to experience ourselves, right? Like that's nothing new in the practice of yoga. But I don't want to get rid of the thoughts or the feelings that might be causing me disturbance, right? I want to feel them because they're as much communicators as the stuff that I actually like to feel more often, right? And so when I can move my body and allow more space to happen in my body because I've moved well, then the more space I have to feel those emotions and feelings. And the more I can feel the relationship between how I feel in my body and what I'm thinking and emotionally feeling. Yeah? So while this becomes like what you experience for me is very much of a physical practice, we're going to come into a lunge now. It's really a space to be alive. Yeah? And there's no other time right now. We're going to come forward. So let me show you this way. There's really no other time than now to be alive, eh? Good. So now we're coming into here. So what I've done here is knees and hips and knees, and we're just moving forward. So I haven't done this. I haven't moved. The articulating joint wasn't that. The articulating joints were here, here, and here. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't do that. That certainly is a movement, but it just depends on what your intention is. Okay, now, I'm going to take a twist away from you, so it's going to look like this. Okay, now I'm going to turn and face you so you can see that. Okay, so I'm going to take a twist like this. And then my hands are going to come here. And if you want, you can bring that arm in behind. Okay, and then we're going to side bend. So here we go. Side bending. Like, I find so fascinating how this time that we're in, and I'll speak completely for myself, the time that I am in, that I am sharing with all of you, is it's one of those weirdly rich times, right? All right, good. Let's come to here. And while, as you know, I'm going to come into a twist. Okay, then a side bend. I might be, as you know, I'm all about possibility and how we can come out of this way better than we went into it. Sometimes it's, you know, we have to face the obstacles with that, right? Sometimes it can be challenging. So just because it's not easy doesn't mean it's not worthwhile, right? And just so you know, I'm saying this all because this is what I'm experiencing. I'm not trying to preach to the choir by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, so let's bring this back down. Let's come back into a twist. All right. Bring the hands here. And then twist. Okay, let's come into a side bend again. And then after this side bend, we're going to come onto the floor and go into a spinal twist. And then over. Now when you're leaning to the side, think about maintaining weight as even as you can between those sit bones. Like obviously I'm more over here on my left, but see if you can just feel that right sit bone or the opposite sit bone. Okay, now let's come down onto the floor. Well, I guess we're on the floor, but right onto our backs. Okay, and then check in with your breathing, okay? And then light comes up. So with this twist, remember, the idea is we're keeping the shoulders on the ground. and then come on back. Okay. And now, lying on back here, just feel yourself breathing for a moment. We're going to do a few more things with our shoulders, but I just want you to feel your body on the floor, and the floor against your body. And then being aware of that, bringing the arms up and have your thumb tips touch, and you're going to raise your arms up and bring the shoulders back. Arms up and back. So my shoulder's coming off the floor and then it's coming back onto the floor. And my thumb tips are touching. You can have your knees bent if you'd like. Okay. And the arms are going to come back and then back up to the sky. So over the head. Now when you're moving in a range that there's no clicking or clunking and no pain or strain, and that your arms aren't wobbling all over the place. So if you move this far and then your arms kind of do this, or there's some kind of wobble, and I'm exaggerating it on purpose, just move in the range that's available. And the idea is as your arms come over your shoulder, your ribs aren't poking up, because if your arms are coming over and your ribs are poking up, then that's not your shoulders doing the movement, that's your back and your ribcage doing the movement. And so really try and keep it through the arms. Okay. And then you're going to take your index finger and thumb tip together. Good. And bend the elbows, so it's going to look a little like this. And I want you to imagine that you've got a piece of thread between your fingers. And you're going to move that wide. Yeah. So you'll notice that my elbows are staying the exact same angle. So take a look at your own elbows and notice if they are bent or if they're, as you're moving, if they're straightening. And the articulating joint here is the shoulder joint, is the glenohumeral joint. Okay, now we're going to rotate the arm bones in the sockets. So you'll see how my elbow, how the elbow moves towards here? The elbow, though, isn't the articulating joint. The shoulder is. So we're moving the shoulder, and the position of the arm changes, okay? And now from that position, we're going to move the arms wide. There you go. Now remember the whole thing around moving in a range that doesn't increase pain. And watch and feel for those yellow lights. All right, lovely. And then bring your hands back down. And then bring one leg up and then the other, and then start to move those legs around. So the articulating joint is through the hip. Try and keep your pelvis as easy on the ground as you can, so that your pelvis, let me move this way, your pelvis isn't coming up as the knees come in. See how the pelvis is staying mostly on the ground? And I'm not trying to push the sacrum into the floor. I'm just moving my legs in the range that's available. And where we're going to move to next is into Happy Baby, and the same thing is going to apply. And I'm going to show you just a few different ways of thinking about it. so that you really can work with it at a hip level. Okay, so if you bring your legs as comfortably into your belly with your pelvis still on the ground. Now again, I want to emphasize, I'm not a huge fan of, so your pelvis has come up and then, okay, push that pelvis down. I just don't see the point in that. Now, if someone could give me the reasoning for the point of that, I'm all game to hear it. I just don't see the point in it. So we got the pelvis and on the ground, and the leg bone has come up into flexion. So now, this is the hip is now going to stay as it is, and the articulating joint is now going to be the knee. Okay, do you see that? So that angle of my hip has stayed the same. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now, you can take the legs wide if you want, like that, if you want, and just take your hands initially in behind the thighs, and now the hip, guess what? That's going to be the articulating joint. Now I'm moving using my arms to do that motion, but the movement is around that hip, yeah? Like so. Now you'll notice what I didn't do. I didn't just do this. I didn't go from here to kind of go, okay, let's get to the feet and go. No. What I'm really curious about, particularly in the theme of this class around like just noticing the emotion and the feeling, is if I just jump my hands up to my feet, there's all sorts of sensation I can miss. And I want to be aware of it. I want to be aware of it. Okay, so here I have my hands back here. Now I'm going to bring those legs in, and then I'm going to slide my hands up into my shins, and I'm going to do the same thing. And then I can go up to my ankles and do the same thing. And then I can be here. All the while, my pelvis didn't move, right? So I'm here. The hip is staying. The knees start to straighten. So that's the articulating joint. My hands come behind. My hands come here. And then they're here. So I didn't like reach up like this. I didn't get all wackadoodle in trying to get up into the position, right? And now from here, I can move down. Now my pelvis is staying the same the entire time. So don't go for your feet if your pelvis is way off the floor. I don't really see any benefit in that, right? Unless you're needing some kind of ego boost, which at times is important. But if you're doing it with your hips coming way off, you kind of have to balance the ego boost with what you've got available in your body. Okay, now, if you want to straighten and have those knees be more of an articulating joint again and come out in a position like this, go right ahead. Right? If your hands are around your feet like this and you want to do that, go right ahead. Right? Okay, and then bring those down. Come closer together. Leave one knee up. The other foot comes down. Place your hand on the front of the knee. You're going to press the knee into your hand without getting all braced in through here. Just the hand provides a bit of resistance, a little bit of hip flexion in isometric. This can be very grounding. And then push. Now, if you've got this stability, you can bring both knees up and do this. But when you push, I don't want you to flatten your back. So just push here. And you can do it one at a time too, so don't feel you have to. And you're going to cross one hand over. And you're going to cross the other hand over. If both of your legs were up, you could have both arms crossed like this. And then both arms crossed like this. Okay, or it's this. Okay, now just remember, this is the articulating joint. So the hips, the one's moving, but it's isometric, so the angle is not really noticeably changing. Okay, now, line here. If you want to add another twist into the mix, then go right ahead. So you can take one leg out and then bring that across. You might notice that you're twisting just a little bit more. Now, into your Shavasana. Hands are out to the side, or you can have them onto your belly or onto your chest. And just easy, easy breathing. I always find it so remarkable for myself how I might feel emotionally stirred up or even frozen in some worry or concern. And then I start to move, and the movement is not intended to move emotion or to change it up, it's just to feel. And it's remarkable the relationship between moving well and mental clarity and mental health. So the idea that I'm not really sure there's a difference and a distinction between the two because they're so interrelated. But this time, like Annie, is just so powerful to be able to feel that connection. So when you're feeling emotionally challenged, see how moving well will help. And then, of course, more than anything, if you need to speak to someone, make sure that you do, yeah? It can be very easy to get spun up into. And there's more and more service there now available in terms of supporting people and their mental health. Okay? So if you're feeling like emotion isn't moving at all and you're starting to get really concerned or really fearful, then do reach out, because hey man, we're all in this together, aren't we? So I will see you again tomorrow. I am talking to Stu as well about some more sequences with him that we can do. We can do things for our partners and with our partners. And I'm also looking at bringing in a little bit more props, like the spinal strip and the felt pad. So those of you who are familiar with that, I'm going to do a little bit of that, but I'll make sure to put it into the live feed of what prop I'm using. So if you've got it, you can play along. If you don't, I'll recommend some suggestions of what you can do instead of that. Okay? It's my start of my day. We're almost at 6 o'clock in the morning. Wherever you are in your day, you have a really, really, really fabulous day. Can I even say that here in this kind of situation? You know? And I think I can. So really, do have a great day. Feel whatever you need to feel. And I'll see you tomorrow morning. Mwah. Bye-bye.